Yo! What is good, everybody? Hope you're all doing well out there. It's it's Wednesday. It's right smack dab in the middle of the week, but it's kind of like my Monday because my kid was on an extended break over the weekend, and he's just returned to school today, and so it kind of sort of feels like it's the top of the week for me because I've been burning the midnight oil. So it's like sunshine is out, and I'm working at the same time. How is everybody out there? How y'all doing today? Hopefully well. Hope you had good days to begin your week. Gotta respect the gazelle. Thank you so much, Sonicscape. Appreciate you, homie. How you doing? 11 months? Really? Tell me, time is flying. Seriously. Yeah. I guess this last year is flying. I guess that's what I've just learned. Bustiest Catbot is also here. Happy Hump Day to you as well. So we're gonna change things up a bit today. You won't slow down either. Only gonna get quicker, bigger, faster, stronger. Go, go, go. We're gonna change things up a little bit today, and I'm not going to be producing anything, and we're just gonna talk. We're gonna talk. I'm gonna answer questions if you've got them. Transponder, how you doing, homie? Happy Wednesday to you. So if you got questions, we'll chat. If you just want to like listen to something specific and pick it apart or ask why it was made, that's fine. Maybe you don't even know that you've got questions about something, so I'll just talk, I guess, for a while, right? I do have some topics to get us started because we did discuss this a little bit last week in live streams, and people were very much interested in a couple of topics. One, just life in general, just surviving the ups and downs, and like how do you stay inspired and productive and all of that stuff, right? Because life is freaking life, you know what I mean? Like, and life's a lot all over us. So I know there's general interest in that, and I know that there's also a great deal of interest in business side of things in general, how to make money, how to survive, how to set up licensing portfolio, how to start getting opportunities, how to collaborate with people, how to know what to make, all that kind of stuff. So I figure we'll just start talking. And if you guys would like to toss something out specifically for us to dig into, we will. Sonicscape saying, I have a few questions, but no doubt most answers will be provided tonight. Yeah, Tomba, you should lay them out. You should put your questions out there. That way we know what they are and we can get to them. DJ Transponder says, I like this. Here's one for you, brother. Where do you see the music industry going in 2026? And what electronic genres will dominate this year? Ooh, those are actually good questions. Okay, so first question. You guys good with the level of the music in the background? Figured some background music would be good today. Where do I see the music industry going in 2026? Well, we are a third of the way or so through it already, and I think we're seeing, by and large, what we're going to see this year. We're going to see a bigger shift, or not a bigger shift, a continued shift toward greater valuation overall for sound and music. For those that don't know, especially on the stock side of things, like royalty-free music, you just go into a marketplace and you just buy something off the shelf and you go and you use it in whatever you're going to use it in, right? That has been on the serious incline for a very long time. In fact, it's one of the biggest growth industries in the world, year over year for many years now, and it's only projected to continue to kind of double and double and double again. And there's really good reasons for that, right? So we'll stick a pin in that little thing, and we'll come back to that. So I do think that there's going to be in 2026, like where's all of this going? There's going to be greater valuation in all of it. And we will also, I think, see the trend continue of the individual artist that is uploading music for the pleasure of listening to music to places like Spotify and Apple Music, etc. They will continue to get absolutely crushed and get nothing, basically, because the streaming platforms have been built to where they don't need to pay the smaller artists. They're already having to pay the bigger artists, right? And that sucks. So I would really steer everyone that's making music and wanting to get something back from it other than good feels, right? Something to help you kind of maintain it. I would really steer everyone in the direction of setting up a portfolio of some kind. And here's why. Not everyone is going to be able to beat AI in their cubicle or wherever they're doing their work every day, right? People that are by and large typing at their computers, a lot of those folks are going to see their work go away. Where I'm going with all of this is there's going to be a much greater consumption of content moving forward. And I think that we've been hearing the steady beat of the drum for a long time of, content creators becoming influencers and becoming people of some sort of, I don't want to say substance because of course we're of substance, but like we're like of some sort of value to the greater society. All of a sudden we're not just like making pictures and sounds and music and stuff. We're actually holding their attention in a different way, right? And the other thing is that as people turn themselves to creating more content, right, as they are launching their own business or turning a hobby into a business, or maybe they're just wanting to put out nicer social posts or whatever. Each time they do that, they're going to reach for other content from other people to kind of bring their stuff to life in more rich and meaningful ways. Music happens to be one of those things that adds a lot of depth and interest really easily. So of course it's something quick and easy that people can drag into a project, and that is like the very first place I think that a lot of people can see some kind of income from. So if you're a musician and you've never really been able to crack the nut, right? You've never really been able to get money out of the good, awesome stuff that you make. Or you like drop something new and it just doesn't go anywhere, right? Your friends and your family like it and they share it with their friends and family and it just kind of sits there and doesn't really do anything for you. Then I would really encourage you to do something else with it, right? It's just kind of sitting there, right? And it's probably kind of chewing a hole inside of you in some way when that happens. So I think that we'll see all of that continue to grow. I think that we will also see a continued explosion amongst the various categories of sound effects. And I'm not talking about big cinematic sound effects or high intensity or overly complex video game, you know, weapon reload sequences, stuff like that. No, I'm talking about every single little sound, right? So if it isn't music and it's on a screen or in something, then it's a sound effect, basically. We can get into the minutia of that later, but those things are very much on the rise, way more than music even. So everything we were just saying about music, but times that by 10, 100, 1,000, it's going to be multiplied by a lot. Okay, so if you have the ability to make sounds and not just music, then this is something else to pay attention to as well. And both of these things can be put into portfolios, and both of those things I think are just going to kind of be expected of people probably by the end of 2026. So I've been talking about it since what, like 2010 or something like that, when we first started to see the royalty-free marketplaces kind of start to rise up from the dust, right? So I would say that we are past the proving point, right? We have the biggest players in our industry deal in this type of content now. So we are there. We are there. And if you haven't joined, then that's probably where you need to go in 2026 if you're wanting to make some money. Um, and there's like a lot to discuss there, but I think that that is what I expect in 2026. The other thing that I expect is that we will see continued kind of bifurcation of people's opinions and worries about AI in music, and that that is going to dominate the music industry. Unfortunately, the greatness of music or whatever isn't really happening in full effect right now, right? Because there's all of this other banter. So we're not really celebrating artists in the way that we have typically in the past. We've just had these massive rulings against Ticketmaster and Live Nation and their coordinated efforts to squeeze money out of people just to go see artists and have a good time, at concerts and shows and festivals and stuff. So I think that we're going to see kind of I'm not going to say a rebalancing or a leveling of the playfield or anything like that, because I don't think that's what's coming. I think it will be more corporate in a lot of ways, and it will be a lot more structured in a lot of ways. But every single time some kind of shakeup or shakedown happens like this in our industry, we see people emerge with very good, sound ideas. Um, I was part of it when we built ADSR back in 2010 to 2015 ish, right? Um, and again, when I built the mentorship network for Pure Mind and all of that, and again with Audio Design Desk, right? So every single time there's going to be one of these little shifts in the industry, you're going to see a lot of people go out and start things up. Those are the moments, those are the things to pay attention to and the moments to jump into stuff, honestly. Um, so, knowing that that's where I think that's the majority of stuff that we're going to see in 2026 on the music side of things, we're not going to see huge leaps forward in um, people's adoption of using AI to make music or to buy AI music. I think it's all going to be kind of a gradual thing. And I think that it's really just about like, what are humans doing in that period of time to kind of carve out what it is they will be moving forward in this next phase, um, and looking for ground floor opportunities and innovative folks and like-minded folks. That's what these moments are always about, right? I guess it's kind of akin to the stock market. If you play those games, right? If you gamble in those ways, things happen in the world, you take notice, and then you make investments based upon your observations or whatever. It's kind of like that, right? We're at that point again in this little shakeup. So I would really encourage everyone to start looking at whatever discovery tools, marketplaces, licensing platforms, anything that's been kind of um, enticing you or interesting you in different ways. Start to learn about it. Start to demystify it, because the only thing that stands between you and actually participating in any of it is actually clicking on the dang thing and starting to do something about it. And that really is all there ever is between you and the next thing. So that's why I think 2026. um, Busty's Catbot is asking, what do you think is more fulfilling as a creator? Higher numbers and engagement, or individuals resonating deeply with your work? Um, I think they kind of come hand in hand in a lot of ways. So, what is more fulfilling? Higher numbers and engagement, or individuals resonating deeply with your work? You don't really know one without the other in the industry, honestly. You don't really know that people are appreciating your stuff and using it well until it is being used, right? So, I do think that there is from folks that have not started to participate fully in like full-time earning from their work. They're really curious and cautious about so many things, and I think that that creates a lot of assumptions and worries and stuff about like loss of control or sacrifice, or like this kind of mutual exclusivity of one over the other. You can make sales and see people appreciating your stuff. You can feel good about both of those things. They are the same thing on this side of the industry, right? It's not just about listening, it's about people using your stuff. And I think there's a great deal of validation in that. I think that it helps people feel relevant and as if they're contributing and they're part of something. You're going to make the stuff you're going to make no matter what. So if the process of making your craft, whatever that content or art is, if that is what does it for you, that's all you ever need to do is make it, right? So then the second part of that conversation really does just start to be about, well, what do you want to do with yourself then in life? Like, is that what you want to do with yourself? Or is that just this thing that's going to be on the periphery that makes you happy on the sometimes, right? So, my answer is yes. Like I think it is most fulfilling as a creator to see yourself get to the point where people are engaging with your stuff, which means they are using it, right? And I think that that is, it's fantastic because it pays bills. It reinforces your thoughts about yourself, about how relevant you are and how capable you are and all of that. And the more you continue to contribute your content to the greater library of noise in the world, the more people there are that find a voice that resonates with them. Because there's countless of people settling every single day for what they find, right? Rather than actually stumbling upon something that's like, oh gosh, this is like the thing. And it can take like years. It may never happen for people that are searching for music. And some people have a knack for it, right? And those people tend to become music supervisors and stuff like that. And then those are the people that we as creators kind of gravitate toward, because they help creators get their stuff out there into the world. So I think there's just this kind of natural ecosystem that starts to reveal itself to you as you start to participate in those things. And I think the questions like that are like very much kind of like a gateway, right, into the bigger conversation, like what kind of steps you need to take to actually realize even what it is you're asking, honestly, really, because like it is, it isn't really possible to see the individuals resonating with your work until there is larger engagement and stuff, if that makes sense. DJ Transponder says, I think it's going to be a battle of fake versus real for content creators. People are tired of the fake flexing and want genuine life instead for a real connection with the artists they like. Yeah. I think that if you were to outright ask a chatbot, like, what can I do that you can't do? And they're probably going to just talk right back at you about being human, right? About like having emotions and creative thoughts that computer can't have. And there you go. I think the big hang up for most folks is trusting in that and believing that that's actually true and real, and then moving forward with it like as something that they're going to like believe in and trust in. But people are interesting, right? And people find other people interesting. And I don't know how much interest there is once the new kind of wears off when it comes to a chatbot, right? Like you can ask a chatbot all sorts of things in kind of transactionary ways, right? I think we're going to grow in the ways that we engage with AI in general. But I think that there's a lot of truth in what DJ Transponder is saying, and that right now, if you're looking for ways to get a leg up, right, use some AI in your work without it affecting anything that you don't want to be less human, then use it for stuff like tagging and finding keywords and well-written descriptions for products that will help them resonate with users, so they'll give your content a listen or a look, right? Um, those types of things I think can be pretty beneficial. But I do agree about this growing sense of like anti-fake. I think that people are growing tired of the overly curated, overly polished thing. I haven't been able to do social media personally. I was never really fully into it, but I haven't been on social media for many years now. And I think that I think part of what makes it so toxic is all of the fake, is all of the posturing and curating and making things appear to be, I don't know, nicer, better, worse, whatever than they already or actually are. I don't know, it messes with people's reality. So yeah, I agree. And I think that the real human connection thing is really just about emotions. Like in music and sound, it's about connecting with people viscerally on an emotional level and almost nothing else, right? So all of this like loudness war stuff and like ear candy producer competition stuff, like it's not really benefiting the majority of people out there seeking really good music experiences, because what they really connect with is emotional stuff. And I think you see that reflected in music charts and stuff like that once you take bots out of the equation. And I think that's why when you're looking at screen-based media, that's typically the type of stuff that you're hearing, right? It's reinforcing whatever kind of emotional state, mood, or aesthetic that they're trying to convey and capture, right? And so much of that comes back to being human, right? We are flawed, we're funny, we're quirky, we're all over the road. And we need music and sounds to represent all of that. So, and I think the fake thing is, I think that's a real bug in people's craw right now. I don't even know the right word. It's bugging people for sure. Sonicscape saying, I think humility is a big part of it. I think staying in your lane and being proud of what you have made and not trying or relying on what others think of self-made art is the biggest take from any artist. Impressionism takes second place after this. He goes on to say, I'm learning to perfect my take on music, and every single track should show growth, and knowing that continuous improvement on people's emotive response from sonic waves is a massive knowledge field to adhere to. Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's just like any business. It's just like any business. Like if you're wanting your business to grow over time, you're going to respond to whatever your customers are. You're going to listen to them. You're going to listen to them. And if you don't have a way to listen to them or, acknowledge what they're expressing, it's growth is going to be probably always just out of reach, and frustratingly so, I think. I've always thought that if you're in business, then you're doing business for your customers, regardless of what kind of business you're running, right? Because anyone can go get a widget from anyone else down the street. The reason why people continue to do business with you over time is because of you. Is because of you as a person, right? Or because you supply something that they just can't get anywhere else. But it always kind of, there's always that gateway of personality, though, right? Like how you do business. It's so important. So like looking at analytics and stuff like that is actually really important, Being known versus being heard, says Catbot. Yeah. Catbot is asking this question. Hey, do you think it's worth avoiding paid music platform exclusivity for the sake of letting anybody and everybody listen and enjoy to your music, or and everybody can listen and enjoy your music regardless of circumstance? I think that I think we're still kind of skirting around the same kind of conversation, right? Because if you're releasing your music to uh, the wild for people to listen to, then they're going to be listening to it basically for free, right? There's so many people out there that don't pay to listen to all the music that they consume every single day. And then there are those who pay, and it's such a nominal fee that it really doesn't translate to anything for the artists that they are listening to. So, I mean, you really got to get up into some really wild numbers for that to actually be something meaningful, which is sad but true. Like, that is just the truth of the matter, I think. So I think that letting anybody listen to your music is just a matter of releasing it, right? If you're not so much into that side, like I don't ever release anything over to Spotify, right? I just don't have any interest in it. So there's probably a lot of people out there that are like, who, what, huh? But they'd recognize stuff inside of shows or games or movies or whatever all over the place. That's definitely a mindset thing, I think. If you're going into this because you want people to listen to it and then give you the feedback that, yes, I listened to it and I thought that was great, and that is what you want from your music, then engaging with your audience in some way is the best way to get that, because releasing it and just putting it up onto platforms isn't really ever going to provide that for you. It's going to be a number on a screen. I'm not sure that's ever really going to be very satisfying, honestly, because it doesn't really translate to much or relate to much tangible, yeah. Did Will Smith win in iRobot? That's a good question. Kappa says, I would say that I actually get more individuals resonating with my work without a large platform because it's easier for people to get in contact with me, and I tend to share my work with my friends more than anybody else. 50% of the views on my music are probably from people I know. I think that's probably typical. I think that's probably a pretty typical situation for most people. I mean, it's very much akin to making music in the real world, right? If you're going to be making music in your local community, probably the people that know about you are going to be the people that frequent the pub that you play at, or the community center that you rock at, or the neighborhood that you practice in, or whatever it is. It would be this kind of close-knit community, right? Yes, yeah, I would agree with that, Catbot. Social media is a social narcotic. It can be more detrimental to your mental state than even some of the worst drugs in the long run. I would agree with that. Paul, how you doing, man? Tuning in from sunny Maryland. It is cold and wet and gray here in Portland today. Kind of dark, but cold and wet. But yeah, it kind of sounds like, a lot of this is kind of circling around this division of making money from music versus not making money from music. And if you're releasing music just out into the wild and you're expecting people listening to it to pay you money, it's probably not a good expectation to have in the year 2026. I don't think it is. And I don't think that that's going to get better really anytime soon, just simply because of the way that things are set up. But just understanding what I was saying earlier about how money actually does move through the industry, right? And how you can tap into that pretty easily. That actually, honestly, it equates to more money and more meaningful input from those engaging with your content. It really does, for a number of reasons. Number one, whatever kind of feedback you're getting immediately and truly does impact business going forward, right? Your ability to understand what a customer really wants or needs, or why something didn't hit or whatever. That's really good knowledge to have, right? The other thing is that when people are using your stuff, there's accountability involved, right? There's paper trails and licenses and all this stuff, so you can actually see where your stuff has gone. Like, you can track the diaspora of your creations, if you will, right? You can see where a release goes over its lifetime and who it impacts and what kind of people it reaches and whatnot through the different types of media that it's used in over those years. I think that's a pretty natural kind of evolution for our type of creations, given the state that we're in now, like this highly digital state. I think everyone is a storyteller moving forward in some way, shape, or form. And music is a it's a soundtrack to that. And then going back to what I was saying previously about, if you have knowledge of sound and you have the ability to create good music, then you probably have the ability to create good sounds too, not just music, not just sequencing those sounds, but actually putting sounds into motion for very specific intentions and then calling them sound effects, right? And those sell even more, right? Even more often, in much greater abundance. And then that provides a real baseline, sustainable, passive income. That is something that's pretty tangible. And when you commingle that with music, those two things kind of supercharge one another, right? Because there's a lot of kind of crossover and confluence there. So if someone resonates with your music, they're probably going to resonate with your sound effects and vice versa. And I do think that people do kind of flock together, like we were saying earlier, about how a lot of your listeners are probably like the same 50% of the listeners are usually the same folks, that type of thing. I think that's totally natural and normal as well. E-Town, how you doing, homie? What are you doing? It's kind of early. You're right in here. How are things? I haven't been streaming as much lately. I've just been having life stuff, so it's good to see you guys. Hope you're all doing well. We're just changing things up today. We are not doing a production stream. We're just doing chatting and talking about surviving in this really kind of weird time that we're living in right now. And I've just kind of opened it up. You guys can ask whatever questions you like. I've been talking a lot about licensing and why people that are making music just for listening pleasure are not making money the way they used to, and that things have very much kind of been moving in this other direction for a long time. And yeah, I think it's a really good, relevant conversation to have. And I think that too many people are hung up on the idea of money being kind of taboo or anti-artist or something that you sacrifice for, right? That you only start to make money when you sell out or some weird thing. I think we tell ourselves a lot of things when we're on the outside of these situations. So anyway, no questions are stupid or not worthy or whatever. So if you guys have questions, production or business or life or whatever, just toss them out and we'll tackle them. How's your stream over there? Paul says, most of my audience is fellow producers. Yeah, see, so you do get, you get kind of like into this kind of echo chamber kind of thing when you start talking about certain topics, like especially about like, hey, what's good about this music? And a lot of it comes back to like loudness and like frequency control and emotional arc and like these things that are like, the general public is not talking like this or thinking like this about their music, right? They're busy cooking or doing homework or taking their kids to school or, on they're way downtown with their friends at night or whatever. Like it's background, it's noise. It's like it's secondary, right? It's so not uh, as important, right? It's wonderful. They are completely addicted to it and they love our music. I'm not saying they don't. It's just that they don't, you know, we talk about it as though we are around the water cooler at work, right? We use a lot of nomenclature and verbal blah to just talk about our stuff, right? I think that's a big turnoff for a lot of general listeners out there. And I think that we as producers never really get frank and honest feedback from the large majority of people listening to the stuff out there. And, you know, when you look at how money is actually made in the industry now and everything running through licensed use of music or sound, it gives you tremendous insight into what kind of person does your music resonate with and what kind of sounds like make people think or feel what. And you know that because you can see exactly when and where they're being used and how often and all that kind of stuff. So it really is kind of eye-opening once you do take some steps in that direction. Bussiest Catbot saying, I really wish there was a way to make money from creative works without forcing other people to pay that money or watch advertisements. Yeah, I think it's just, I hear you and I understand I understand the feelings behind that, and yet, but also like, you know, I make money from what I do and I happily spend that money. Like I'm never upset to spend. No, that's not true. I don't like constantly seeing prices getting jacked up just for no reason and then me having to pay more for the same thing that I'm used to paying less for every month. I don't like that. But when it comes down to like supporting people, or like if I find art or something that I like, I'm like, ooh, yeah, and that feels great, right? Or if my kid wants something, I'm like, I don't understand that thing, but that's what you want, so cool, yeah! And I feel good about that. That's great. I think the exchange of money is not a bad thing. I don't think that's bad. I think that the bad part of the money feelings is the feelings of like being taken advantage of, right? And if you're out there selling your music or your sounds, you need to understand, what are those guys used to paying? And how often do they pay that? And why do they pay that? And why is there money involved in the first place at all? Right? So just a little bit of understanding about it really kind of demystifies things. And then I think really kind of quells a lot of the bad feelings that you might have going into it. But really, like, a lot of people are out there fretting every single day. Like, I've been making music for years and years and years, and all these other people supposedly somehow make money around me or whatever, and I can't. How is this happening? Like, is my stuff just not good or what? And the answer is no. Like, it's not that your music isn't good. It's just that you haven't put it in the right place yet, is all, right? And what that means and what that looks like is different for every single person, right? Sometimes it's just a label that someone needs, or sometimes it is a manager, or sometimes it's just a library that they need to be able to upload to, that's going to manage all of the sales for everything. Or maybe there's someone that really likes to chase opportunities and they're going to watch the sync opportunity feeds, right? And or maybe there's someone that likes to set up a portfolio and groom it over long periods of time, and run everything through a disco account and just deal with music supervisors more directly and make bigger transactions through sync placements. And it's all basically the same thing at the end of the day. It's just kind of realizing that releasing your music into the wilds, for people to just kind of listen to via Spotify, etc. It really doesn't do anything monetarily for you as an artist, right? It does create some awareness. There is some discovery involved in all of that, but big picture, feeding yourself, keeping a home, that kind of thing. It requires really steady income, a lot of money, and that's where the equal exchange comes in. Someone is out there making videos, and their videos are just, they're so-so. They're just kind of so-so. And then, however this happens, they start using your music in it, and it starts to become like emotionally aware. Like their stuff is now registering with people in a way that it wasn't, and they're starting to realize, if this music was just a little bit different, like, ooh, maybe they could captivate people even more in a more special way, right? And so they communicate that to you, and you evolve your approach just slightly, and now there's a real like synergy happening there. Now imagine that extrapolated out dozens or hundreds or thousands of times throughout your career. Each time you stop and you listen to a little bit of feedback and you make a small adjustment and you release that next thing, it's not just an improvement for that one person in that one specific situation. It's an improvement for a great many people who haven't even come along and found your stuff yet. And when they do find the next thing that you upload after that little bit of advice was absorbed and, you know, put to use in that, they feel how good it is and they want more. And when they go find more, they just find better and better and better and better stuff, because you just keep growing and growing and growing. But the problem is that a lot of people never actually start putting the stuff out there into a portfolio to begin with. And that's the detriment, right? So as long as you're aware that these opportunities are out there, you can figure out what kind of, you know, what style fits you, what kind of person you are, what fits your personality. But there is a way, I think, for pretty much everybody that's creating music and sound right now to be making money, and to be making pretty good money. Like I was saying at the top of the show, it's one of the biggest growth industries in our world, and it has been for some time. So tapping into it literally is as hard as beginning to upload. And then the second hardest part is actually paying attention to the analytics for a bit, like actually paying attention to what's being used and what isn't, not having an ego in it and like forcing things like, I'm just going to continue to create this thing and then the sales will happen. It's like, well, you know, to each their own, but it might be better to look at the sales reports and see what people are buying and make some more of the stuff that they're buying right now. Things kind of trend and they ebb and flow, and getting to understand how all of that works and why, I think, is so much more important than being stubborn in some artistic way, right? Like, it's so much better as a creator to explore all of the different things you could be making, or the ways in which you could be doing it, I think. Truly. Paul says, well, it is the music business, so any time spent on the business side takes away from the music one. Yeah, I would agree with that, but I would also say that every minute that you spend on the business side of things when you're managing a portfolio is a minute that translates across your earning potential for the rest of your career. Versus when making music, you are creating something new that has the potential to continue to earn for the rest of your career. So the two are totally in tandem, and you have to kind of do it in lockstep. And you obviously can't put too much into the business without the music, and vice versa. But counting yourself out of any of those opportunities just because something is complex or tedious or something from the outside is the only way to really fail in all of it, honestly. Yeah. Ooh, wow. Paul saying, I aim for that audience wedge between country and Western, hungry for electronic, ambient, and experimental hoedowns. That is wild. So Paul's asking, what are the modern equivalents of cutouts? You mean like stingers or like intros, outros, like those types? Like how are people most likely to chop up their music and use it, and what are the names for those things? Um, it depends. It depends, right? Intro, outro can be as simple as, well, I guess as they've always been. Stingers, you've got stings and stingers, and stings are much more musical. They're musical cues for kind of this transition and branding thing all at once. Stingers are more of this kind of viscerally connected, ephemeral sound effect that takes place. Um, it's oftentimes a non-diegetic sound, meaning that it's a sound that if there was a microphone in a room, it's not going to be picked up on that microphone. It's a sound that's actually added to create a greater context. Um, yeah. And I also think that there's just been this compartmentalization and categorization of all of sound effects to the nth degree that um, chopping up some of those sequences and selling those individual bits as sounds is oftentimes way more lucrative nowadays. So I will go back and I will dissect what I just said. So, for instance, in a cinematic movie trailer, there's this really big long wind up, this huge riser, and like as we're creeping up in intensity and going on in time with this riser, other things are happening, right? This digital glitch stuff, this stutter stuff. Maybe there's even like some like radio imaging type stuff or something, and then some explosions or impacts, and there's some whooshes involved and all. So of course you can sell that one sequence as this drag and drop solution for someone making trailers, and you're going to sell some of those. But you could also take out the whooshes and sell each one of those whooshes individually, and you could take out all three of those risers and you could put each one of those risers up individually for sale. See what I'm saying? And the impact and the cinematic hit and the sub boom that all were layered together in there for that one big crescendo hit, like three different sound effects being sold right there, right? So just kind of understanding the value of each little thing and why that value exists, and knowing that when you charge someone $1 for a riser or $5 for a hit or whatever it is, isn't ripping them off or like it's not bad in any way. That's really good. Like, and you come up with fair pricing that you feel really good about, and then you can stand behind it, right? And you can have a respectable business with a really solid reputation that's built on value, and you are always delivering more than what you're taking, basically, right? Is kind of the ethos. And you'll find that that's actually what a lot of people do. You'll find that that's actually like kind of the middle ground of what people are doing out there. They really do want to offer a competitive kind of low cost alternative that's accessible to the masses. They're not trying to sell to just the people buying from Hans Zimmer. That's not how it works. It really is. It really is just a bunch of people just creating and selling and stuff. And once you see how all of these assets are actually being used, you quickly realize that, oh gosh, this person just made this video. It's an explainer video. It's only a minute and a half, but oh gosh, it's got like 198 sound effects in it, right? Like that's a lot of licensing. And then all of a sudden it really makes sense why subscription models has taken over the world, and why universal licenses are a thing now, and why people are paying literally like pennies for sound effects now, and why it still makes sense for the creators, because they're dealing with such a high volume of traffic in these marketplaces. All of it starts to make sense regardless of what it is once you start to actually participate in it and start earning from it, and kind of slowly absorbing why everything is the way that it is. And just trust that, as with everything in any marketplace, if something is exorbitantly priced or seems out of whack with the perceived value of the good, it's not going to move, right? And vice versa. If something is really great and the price doesn't really seem to align, it seems pretty low for what it is, you're going to see a bunch of sales around that thing until that person or that business starts to recognize what is happening there. I think that's just normal kind of marketplace mechanics. No, this is good. Capot, I'm reading your thoughts about, always had the thought in your mind you don't want people to spend money. They can't afford things that you create. It's an irrational fear that's been drilled into your head, watching people live paycheck to paycheck in the modern world. Don't like how limited money and thus access to luxuries has become for a lot of people. And last thing I want to do is contribute to that, but I'm also stuck between that rock and a hard place. Yeah. So Catbot, you're pretty close to having some sort of really awesome little emotional breakthrough around this thing, and that is just the simple epiphany that it's not the money. It's not the money. It's not the money. You've been triggered to feel very specific things about things that have been restricted and withheld in various ways from you throughout your life. And a lot of that seems so incredibly personal while you're in it. But once you start to kind of claw your way out of all of that, and you never really forget it, it gives you all of your mindset around the ideas of value that you'll ever need to run a really good business and survive very well. Seriously, because you'll have a really good understanding of the breaking points for people monetarily. Price value perception is everything. So if you are running a business that feels favorable to creators, they're going to continue to do business with you. And it sounds to me like you probably will do that. You will probably be someone who doesn't go for the over exorbitant pricing model. You're going to try to stay really accessible, but you do have an interest in doing this. You just feel a little weird about getting paid for doing something that is so awesome. And that's understandable. Yeah. What's up, Kojak? Kojak saying, hey, I've heard of this money thing. Do people actually enjoy having it? Paul says the music industry has unlimited opportunities versus no guarantees. Cutouts were discount records for us poor students could afford. Oh, yeah, cutouts. Yeah, I remember having, oh man, do you remember the tear-outs in magazines that you could, like, they were so floppy, but you could literally just tear them out and set them on your record player and you could listen to them? Those were great. Man, those were epic. A sandwich in this economy? Seriously though, like it kind of it puts a spotlight on everything when you go out and you try to buy a sandwich and it's like 15 or 20 bucks to buy a sandwich and you're like, I'm going to go make my own sandwich at home. But there are things that you see at that price point and you're like, oh wow, how could this only be 20 bucks? After being told that your sandwich is $20 and then going down the street and seeing some beautifully handmade piece of art that someone is willing to sell for $20, it makes that $20 impulse purchase of that art item so much more digestible and real. Like that's something that can actually occur now. So I've seen that effect take place a lot over the last few years, where artists are very slow to raise their prices in general. They really, really are, myself included. And I think there's reasons for that. And I think that especially once you grow a really large portfolio, you're now managing a portfolio, and changing a price means changing lots of prices. But aside from all of that, artists tend to raise their prices last, right? Because we're all worried and kind of view all of this through the same social lens, which is art is a luxury item. It's not a necessity. So you can't just reach into people's wallets and take, right? And that's so like, yeah, obviously true and real. And then there's the other side of this conversation, which is not everyone that's out there looking for music and sounds is being taken advantage of. And they are, in fact, in need of those sounds for their current business model. They are making videos for XYZ, and they need these 38 sounds and these 4 music beds by the end of today to meet this deadline. And that situation plays itself out more than all those other situations by a lot. Especially on a global level, right? And once you start to realize that, it starts to dawn on you just how much on the outside of all of this you have been, and how much you've maybe misinterpreted or misunderstood your ability to participate in all of this. Because like the one thing that a lot of folks that sell training and that kind of stuff, they're very hesitant to explain this one very simple thing, and that is that in the age of computers, if someone can point and click their mouse at something to make something happen, then anyone can. And that's the bigger thing. So if you have music, if you have sounds, you can put it into licensing too. And then that hardest part is over. And then the best part is talking about best practices. And that's the kind of stuff that we can talk about, like literally for an hour or two every single day moving forward, right? And that's like, what are the small things that you can do every single day to set yourself up for success, or to keep yourself relevant, or to stay inspired, or to earn more money, or to outperform AI in this very specific way, or whatever it is. And once the ball's already rolling, you can spend an hour or two and pick up a new skill or pick up a new idea, and then figure out a good way to start employing that in what you're doing, and have it make a real good difference, right? Something that's meaningful and tangible. Tear-outs, yes, tear-outs, as in like the little floppy plastic vinyls. Yes, absolutely. Sad face, how you doing, homie? They're saying, hey, I'm kind of low energy mentally at the moment, but I thought I'd stop by and chat. Welcome in. We're not doing much today. There's no heavy lifting here, so you're gonna fit right in. Absolutely. It's Kojak says, having done freelancing for the last 12 years, it is terrifying to ask what you're worth for the fear of not getting the gig, because you can't afford a no. And it slowly becomes a financial spiral. Ooh, you know what I did to get out of that? I just put prices forward. Meh. When someone asks something and I don't feel like I want to gamble and risk losing them as a potential client, I'll give them options, and each one of them has a price tag attached to it. And I know that in any economic climate, not just a down economic climate, but any economic climate, most people are going to go for the cheapest option, especially if they've never worked with you before. So here's the magic sauce. Write down the number that you actually need to get from this transaction as the cost of option number 1. Now, for options 2 and 3, it's going to be basically carbon copy of whatever option 1 is, but it's going to come with these small fringe benefits. They are not essential, and yeah, they'd be a nice little upsell, and that's great. Cool, but it's probably not going to be what they pull the trigger on. Third option. This is the one that feels a little bit more extravagant, and it might even feel like some sort of an overreach or an oversell, but it's going to include follow-up things, like things, right? It's going, if you're delivering a sound pack, for instance, maybe it's going to include a small video talking about the sound pack, or whatever it is. You're going to think of whatever it is, right? Maybe it's a preset pack and you're going to include some noise files and some LFO shapes or something to kind of add value, or whatever it is. You're going to create some options, right? And now you've gotten away from the whole conversation of what is price? Well, other people are priced lower and blah, 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 blah. You've now shifted the entire conversation. Now they're on the hook to make a decision here. They've come to you and they have asked you a question about your services, and now you're selling them this idea. And they're in control of what parts of the idea are actually going to come to fruition, right? They're going to picture it all in their minds before it even happens. And then they're going to pick the one that makes the most sense for them, the cheapest option. Option number one. We knew it the entire time, right? But they're going to pick the one that makes the most sense for their business. And it's going to be the most responsible business decision as well, because they need to understand if it's safe to invest in this relationship or not. That's what you want them to invest in. It's not the sound pack or the video or whatever it is that you're freelancing there. It's about the relationship, because whatever it is that you're filling their cup with, like while you're communicating about this project, after you've delivered this project, after you've given them a glowing review on whatever platform they discovered you through, you're still filling their cup with potential and inspiration and hope, right? You're giving them this sense of, if you ever come back to me with a need, I got you. I got you. This is something you no longer have to worry about. And in the world of creatives that is dependent upon other creatives, like that's kind of priceless. Having someone that you can just make a turnkey component in your workflow, that's pretty essential. And for a lot of people out there working in freelance, they never quite see it through this lens. They see it through their lens, this very acute lens, this very urgent need lens of, I need to make this deadline and I have to deliver this file to this guy. I need a good review from this guy. But really what it should be is, I should be doing all of the sound for this guy, no matter what. So I'm going to do whatever it takes in this first order, these first two orders or whatever, to just set their mind at ease. I am their problem solver. Like, I am their autopilot, right? I'm now no longer looking at that client as my client that I need to deliver to. I am now looking at that as, hey, I have this client that is in need of what I produce, and it is a commodity for them. They work with other freelancers, other contractors. I am not special, but I fill this role in their queue. And that's kind of this mental shift that can make a tremendous impact on your business, because you start treating things as preciously as perhaps you were before, which means you're probably going to be in greater alignment with your clients, actually. Catbot saying, it also becomes a conflict between how much money you're worth versus what people are willing to pay. Artists almost always deserve more money, and customers are always wanting or needing to spend less money. Yeah, that is something that we tell ourselves when we have not committed to doing something yet, I think. I say that with all of the love in my heart and with all of the respect that you deserve, and I think that it's just something that I've heard and seen play out countless times over the past few decades. And it's something that I myself have said, like earlier on. Once you start running a business, it is business. It's business. If you perform, you get paid. If you deliver a file, you get paid, right? If you do what was agreed upon, you get paid. And as long as you keep doing that, your reputation grows, your business grows, and you're not asking, you're not demanding more, right? The market is going to control basically all of that. And this idea that as you start to gain clients, you can just ratchet up your rates really quickly, and that's how you're going to cash in on all this, it just doesn't quite work all that simply. So all of that takes time. And if someone was to go in there and just like raise their rates unexpectedly, it would have a pretty big impact. Yeah, there are pricing psychology schemes that you can follow. But oh yeah, and having an answer for I can get it done for cheaper is the hardest but most necessary skill for outside of the actual skill set, says Kojak. And I would agree with that. But also, if you're having to explain why what you do has value, that's not going to be your greatest client, and you shouldn't get too hung up on it. That kind of conversation is happening because this person is on a budget and they are new to it, and they are not fully trusting yet that they're going to get a return on what they're doing, right? Everyone is kind of operating in kind of this tenuous position. But once you start dealing with clients that understand their workflow and they understand the context in which their stuff is relevant, what value it has, then paying you is part of a spreadsheet. Think about that. Think about that. Your cost is part of a spreadsheet. Your cost is not offensive and it's not outrageous. It's actually not even something that needs to be justified in the conversation. It's justified before you have this conversation. Otherwise, you wouldn't be having this conversation. And you just don't realize that yet because you haven't had enough of these conversations for that to fully penetrate, right? I mean, when you really stop and think about it. So, cart before the horse. And those type of concerns are the type that keeps you out of doing the things, I think. Sonicscape says, I'm making something so OTT whilst listening here. This positive talk is making me a bit reckless. Paul says, I think my tarot's came from Mad Magazine. Oh man. Mine came from all over the place. I was a big Modern Drummer fan, so I really liked hearing the latest little solo that Jack DeJohnette or whoever was cooking up that month. And also there were like early computer music magazines, stuff like that. Like, oh man. Back in like junior high, so this would have been like 80s, 12-inch single days. There was like Al Jorgensen Ministry had those little tarots. I think that's how I first heard some Ministry. That was like prior to Trent Reznor starting to drop his stuff in a very similar way. Man, those were good days. That was some good stuff. Bustiest Catbot saying, it's like Patreon tiers. Well, sort of, yes. When you're doing business with someone, you understand that you're going to pay them, but you understand that when you're out looking for some freelancer or contractor or something, that you're going to pay someone no matter what, right? Now, the reason why you're paying a contractor or freelancer is because you don't have the ability or interest in hiring someone full-time or part-time or directly, right? And there's a lot of reasons for that, lots and lots of reasons. But you got to remember that when someone is approaching you and you are that freelancer, you are that contractor, like that person knows all those things. Like this is part of their business. This is part of their business model. And they may not be disclosing all of it to you, but this is how it all works. You're going to get paid as part of a budget. So, be honest about what you need, because there might be some negotiation or some dwindling of that number, right? And if that number does become less at any point, make sure that you've considered that before entering into this, and that you've baked into your number that you've presented to them a little bit of a cushion there for that very reason. And they've done the same thing, like everybody does. And it's not cheating or anything, it is business. You have to have margins and room for error and growth and negotiation and sales and all sorts of stuff. So just because it's something that is near and dear to your heart, your music, it doesn't mean that once it's created, it is this precious thing that cannot be dealt with. It can be dealt with, and it will be dealt with, and you'll make money from it. And it is precious in a way, but it's not so precious. You're going to make countless more music files or sound files in your days moving forward, right? Yeah. So don't get too hung up on those things. Never do a free test demo either. The client comes along, hey, I've got this gig. It's going to pay like $3,000, but I need to get one from you for free just so, I know that you're actually capable of doing it. Bustiest Catbot says, here's an unrelated question. What's the point of having a server's notifications set to all messages if it's going to get all the way up to 68 notifications? Yeah, good point. Or why stay connected with something? I think those are just like those automated bot things, right? And then that's aggregated across all of the channels in that server. Yeah. I don't have much time or interest in doing all the social stuff online all the time. So there's plenty of time between my check-ins on lots of servers. It's Kojak says, my lens was efficiency, taking my time to learn how to make things look like they take a day and a half time. Then undercutting isn't actually undercutting. Yes, that's exactly it. That is the key. Also, day rates are magical. Yes, I also agree. Yeah, when you are offering something, it is so good to have the ability to conjure an infinite number of those things, whatever that widget is. You better be able to just make them ad nauseum infinitum, like just. I've gotten to a point where I can do that type of thing in a ridiculously unfair way. Like if we're talking cinematic effects, especially any of the main, like the Holy Trinity transition effects, right? You've got risers, transitions, hits. And in there, in those transitions, you've got whooshes and swooshes and swishes and suckbacks and reversals and all sorts of swells, all sorts of stuff. So anyway, when it comes to that kind of stuff, I mean, it's seconds. And it's so unfair, but it's seconds. I can knock that kind of stuff out in seconds. So I can actually build portfolios around just those types of elements if I wanted to, right? And become super hyper specifically focused. And then you build a brand around that kind of reputation, and then people come to you looking for something specific. You know how easy it is to fill those orders when you're operating in that like super specific mode? Oof. And also, you end up making way more sales than a lot of the other guys because you become known as this expert in this one very specific thing. So, if you're looking for the best XYZ, go to the XYZ shop to get the best XYZ, you know? Because otherwise, you might just click around all day looking. And who knows if you can even trust it? People tell themselves a lot of things when they're shopping, but the easiest thing to rely on in an open marketplace is reputation and sales. So if you have a lot of sales and you have a good reputation, you're just going to make a lot more sales and you're going to have a way better reputation than everybody else. It's just going to keep self-perpetuating. It's just going to keep going and going and going. So just figure out whatever it is that works, that you have value in, that you can make a lot of, that you actually enjoy, and just double down on it for a while. Sad Face says, I don't know why, but my message isn't sending. Is there a limit on how much you can send in one go? I don't know. Sad Face here on Twitch? There might be. I'm sure there probably is. I think there's probably a character limit on everything. Door-to-door sound pack sales really don't work, however. Yeah, right. Excuse me, ma'am. You really do look like you have your hands full, but honestly, I'll be as quick as I possibly can. I'm here at your door today to sell you these sound effects. Let me tell you why you need these sound effects, ma'am. What? Your baby's crying? No, ma'am, just give me a couple more minutes. You need these sound effects, ma'am. God, that'd be atrocious, wouldn't it? Oh, wow, that'd be bad. Velvet Goat Cheese, welcome in, homie. Velvet Goat Cheese saying, and then there was the Billy and the Boingers bootleg book with the floppy vinyl and the 2 songs, Bloom County. Yeah, yeah. It's so true. Ooh, okay, Sad Face has got some stuff here. I spent this week going through the compression phase for that song I sent you. It's taken some time getting used to the 1176, its variations, and just trying to hear what it's doing. They're so transparent that it's hard for me to hear the difference. But what I've learned is it's something that's somewhat based on feeling. I haven't used compressors or experimented enough until this past week where I've been forced to try and get over my subconscious fear I'll make a sound worse because I lack the understanding and experience to make use of the tools provided before me. That's fair. This song has definitely been a massive learning curve. I've kept in mind your suggestion for tube saturation and was planning on saving the Fairchild for last, even though I've never used it before, and applying it to the master. Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, sad face. Here's the thing, man. About here's we got to get past the fear. You may not know how something was intended to be used or how a professional might use it compared to you, but that's okay. Use your ears and trust your ears. Close your eyes. Don't even look at the dang thing, and turn a knob. And turn it until something sounds better or worse. And if it sounds worse, try to get back to where it sounded better. And when it sounds the best that it's sounded so far, just stop. Just take your fingers off of it and hit balance or whatever it is to get that sound out. And just trust your ears, right? And the more often you do that, the better off you're going to be. You're going to trust yourself. You're going to understand what the tools are doing. You're going to stop kind of like unnecessarily obsessing about certain parameters maybe that aren't as impactful as maybe you were thinking they might be in some cases. Other cases, maybe you come back to what you made a week or two after you've bounced it and you listen to it and you're like, oh gosh, that sounds awful. I don't know why I thought that sounded good. But you're giving yourself a chance to get through that moment and print something. And you've put it into reality now. And you can then compare that to something else. You can correlate that. You can compare. Like that's the big thing. And once you have the ability to correlate and compare, you can learn and apply whatever you're learning. And you can also start to identify what you don't understand, which is oftentimes, even more important, because then it gives you something to actually focus on for your learning. And that way you're not spinning your wheels, wondering if you're hearing the supposed difference or whatever, right? When you're really drilling down into something specific, there's usually a great deal of context involved. So keep running stuff through those plugins, and don't get caught up in the fear stuff. It's Kojak saying, just so I know you're capable of doing it. That's a trigger phrase I didn't realize I had. Well, no, I just sent my stats first. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, you don't realize that you have these like really big reactions to things until you hear those phrases being spoken, right? No, it's true. People will try to get all sorts of stuff for free, and they will try to enter into these conversation modes where they think they have some kind of an advantage for negotiation or whatever. And my advice is just don't even begin. Just don't even go there. There are platforms that manage all of that stuff for you. Go there. And let them manage all of that. You maybe will not get some of the gigs that you'd like that whatever. Sometimes it's easier or it's nicer just to have some peace of mind from having a platform provide a sense of security for you in certain ways. And rates is one of those things. And I think once you start making some money and you do it for a while, that's just something that you're not willing to bend or break on anymore. Because if you can't depend upon the money that you thought you were able to depend upon, you can't run a business. And if you can't run your business, you can't survive. So you just make that in a hard line in the sand. That's something that is non-negotiable, is the rate for certain things. So, and people have a great deal of respect for that, I think. Endless is here. What's up, Endless? How you doing, man? Ooh, Paul says the UAD signature collection is on sale right now. Their compressors are good. Yeah, they recently just put out a bundle, I think, with what's their DAW called again? I'm spacing it. Anyway, if you pick up their DAW, you can get like all their compressors and stuff for free right now, I think. Yeah, the portfolio is the thing. That's the thing. You can't argue with a portfolio. You know, and a portfolio doesn't go anywhere. And if you're just uploading one or two things each day or each week to a portfolio, it is something that is growing, even if the rest of everything you're touching isn't. So even if you have to step away from creating entirely for yourself for a while and you are working a 9 to 5 job that you really don't enjoy, but it pays you all right and you're paying your bills and you're getting by, spend a little bit of your free time to just consistently and methodically continue to upload things to that portfolio, because the passive income isn't going to go down unless you're somehow becoming less relevant. Because there's one argument that just drives me up the wall, especially in the AI era, and the whole, well, any of this just drives me up the wall. But it's the thing that I hear from students a lot over the years, which is, oh, well, I was going to upload those things, but then like I went and I clicked around in the marketplace and I saw that there's already thousands of those. So whether or not we're talking about a finger snap or a bubble pop or a dubstep banger, like all of it, none of that matters. There could be 1,000, there could be 100,000, there could be 1,000 cajillions, and that still doesn't matter. It's still kind of a bad argument, because none of those are the one that the person's looking for, or else they wouldn't still be looking. And also, you can't look at all of those at the same time. You can't just absorb 1,000 cajillion billion sounds or songs. And who would? People are only ever going to click and listen until they find the one that's going to work for them, to whatever degree. It's going to be instantaneous if it's perfect, and they might come back and listen to it 3 or 4 times before buying it if it's not perfect, but it's what they're going to settle for. Regardless, you've always got a shot at that. And it really doesn't matter how many other people have put their stuff out there. That's a fact. Now, it bothers me even more when people say the same thing about AI. And here's why. In any given portfolio, I might have risers. One might expect that. But would one expect hundreds or maybe even thousands of risers? Well, probably not, right? Because they're thinking, well, gosh, how many risers could you possibly freaking need, right? Maybe tens of thousands. I'll let you know when I find the limit, because people will always buy more risers. In fact, the more risers you have, you know what? The interesting phenomena that occurs, they buy even more of your risers. Yeah, it's true. And I'm not saying that, oh, okay, so for the next 20 years, you should only make mouse click sounds and set up a mouse click sound effect shop. Sure, you're going to sell a lot of mouse clicks, and that's going to end up working out really, really well for you. And everyone that wants a mouse click in their project will come to you for your mouse click sounds, and that's great. But you'll probably also just drive yourself up the wall, and you probably won't feel as though you have a very fulfilling life. So just do the stuff that you like and try to do it at scale, you know? Ooh. Sad Face says, I purchased the Triple Crown compressor collection from Plugin Boutique and got 9 plugins for the price of 1. Ooh, you gotta love that. Gotta love that. Oh, Kavina, we're not doing feedback today just because we've said specifically that we're not going to. Just because we want to have a just chatting stream. So I'll just put that there in the chat. You can click right through to the Discord there. But on Friday, if you want to bring it by on Friday, we'll give you very honest and frank feedback. We do it every single Friday. We start around 10:30 a.m. Pacific, and we usually go for a few hours. Oh, it's an album cover. Well, toss it in the Discord then. Drummer boy, how you doing, homie? I keep thinking about the door-to-door sound sales. Luna, thank you, Paul, for the name of the DAW. Luna, thank you. Couldn't remember it. I think that's why they have made their plugins free in an effort to get people to use Luna, because people aren't using it. There's been so many DAWs introduced. Catbot saying, being like, there's already so many out there, is ignoring the fact that the customer does not care. It doesn't matter if you're just adding to the pile. People want more options. There's a reason producers have 1 billion snare samples in their folders. Yeah, right? Endless says, hey, when you say portfolio, what does that mean specifically? Like, I have a YouTube and a SoundCloud. Do I need my own website? Where do people go to buy risers anyway? Endless. So the way that this works is that if you release music out into the world, or a sound, and it's just like put up on Spotify or whatever, or you're selling an album at Tower Records or whatever, okay? What you're actually selling them is a license so they can specifically listen to it. In fact, it's illegal for them to make a copy of it and give it to a friend. So like making a mixtape is actually a crime, technically, for most released music, but because it's breaking the license agreement. So the real portfolio situation here that we're talking about is a licensing portfolio. It's just a place where people can go and purchase your things, and in a way that allows them to use that thing in a project. So if it's a riser, they could use it in a video game or a song or a movie trailer or whatever. Or if it's music, they can put it in the background of their YouTube videos or their podcast or their live stream or whatever. And each time someone licenses something from your portfolio, you get paid. And then depending upon what kind of license you've sold, what kind of agreement you've entered into with this person or this company, that is what dictates how much you are paid and how they are able to use it over time. And that, in a nutshell, is why the portfolio is needed. And then where do people go to buy risers? It depends on the intended use. So if you are a music producer and you're looking to add risers to a song, you're probably going to get a pack of samples from a marketplace like Ghost Hack or Loop Cloud or ADSR or whatever. Now, if you are a video editor or a filmmaker or something like that, someone working on movie trailers, and you need a riser, well, now we're in slightly different territory now. It can still be a royalty-free sound, just like the riser that was purchased in that sound pack for the music producer. But more often than not, you're going to buy that riser individually because sounds are licensed and music is licensed individually into projects, because each project is different and it might have a different scale and scope and audience size. And that dictates what kind of license you might need. So, enter the modern marketplace where things have been very much simplified. Most of them operate on a subscription basis where people pay one low cost and they can download a ton of stuff or maybe even unlimited things and then use those things that they've downloaded in projects that they are now going to release. They're going to put this video up on YouTube. They're going to have a live stream tomorrow and they're going to use your music as intro music or whatever it is. all of those things require a license. And having a marketplace that allows for all of that to be managed kind of automagically for you is the way that everything works now. And that way, you're not caught up in the minutia of selling your music to people to use and stuff, because who in their right mind would run a business like that, right? Like actually looking for all of the people that's going to use your stuff. It would just be insanity. So instead, you put all of your stuff up in one place and then people come to it. And usually a marketplace or a big library is the best way to go because it's drawing a lot of traffic in every single day. And then you are involved in the competitive landscape of assets in that greater library that people will then browse and hopefully download and use. And without having your stuff in a portfolio, you're never going to get any of that, opportunity or money. Paul says, when they figure out your risers double as explosions when played backward, you're golden. Yeah, it's just like when they don't realize that all of my cinematic hits reversed are also called suckbacks or reverse transitions, and they are sold for the same amount of money. Yeah, all of that stuff. And all of it is relevant. All of it is a drag and drop solution, a simple asset that someone is using to make something much bigger. So when you start to think in those terms, and you start to think in the mindset of, okay, so I make music, and I want to make music professionally, then also kind of cart and horse, make sounds too, right? People use more sounds than they do music. You're already making sounds, probably, for your music. And the more you work with audio, the more enticing it is just to work with these very simple, ephemeral, fleeting sounds, because you don't have to produce a whole song. And people are going to use that sound 1,000 times more than they're going to use that whole song, right? So you start to kind of develop a greater understanding of this whole side of the industry and how you can plug into it and what kind of value there is in all of it. Catbot, mixtapes being illegal by nature makes them sound even cooler. It's audio contraband. Yes, absolutely. Rob Pod, welcome in. How you doing, homie? Happy hump day, Rob. Immediately, I have to think about the movie Mixed by Ari, says Rob. Amelia says, hi, I would love to rewatch this live. Will it be possible? Yes. Yeah, the VOD will be available after the stream is done, and then I'll move it over to the new YouTube channel when it's done too, and I'll post the link in the Discord. So just join the Discord there and you'll see the links. Catbot says, also, I mentioned a topic relating to AI a while ago, but it was unintentionally skipped over. Oh, what was it? What was the topic that I unintentionally skipped over, Catbot? We can talk about it. Sadface saying, today, trying to be independent in any form of art feels almost impossible. The odds are stacked against you in so many ways, and it feels like the game is rigged. And that's not exactly wrong. It's easy to become a voice buried in a sea of people. I tried doing YouTube for 5 years, and it didn't work out. I really wanted it to at the time because I was good at making videos, but I was just doing the same thing as hundreds of thousands of other people, and it just didn't work out as much as I kept hoping it would. I think the greatest irony is that the internet was used to connect people in the beginning, but now it seems to just bury them in a sea of noise. So many voices unheard. However, regardless of the fact that the odds are very luck-based, the one thing that has changed is the fact that you've grown. That's my only takeaway from this stuff. I've sometimes get caught up in feeling expected to know everything or just to be like professionals because that's the end goal. To be so good at what I do, and more importantly, be confident in myself and trust myself and be rewarded for it. But by getting caught up in all that, I often forget that I've grown and I'm still growing. And I need to be patient with myself. And sorry for dumping crazy paragraphs. No need to apologize for dumping big paragraphs. That was awesome. You're absolutely correct. So the only thing that you've done, quote unquote, wrong in this journey, sad face, is that you've actively given up. Like the YouTube thing, that's fine. Like if you leave YouTube off to the side, that's fine. But if you were to stick with it, maybe it's another couple years, who knows? But there probably would be some kind of breakthrough. And it wouldn't be magical, and it probably wouldn't be just from doing what you've been doing. You would probably need to make some changes. I tell my kid this all the time, and he is 9. So I'm trying to instill this in him at a really young age, because I feel like a lot of people don't really start to really fully feel this until they're like, I don't know, mid 30s or something. You just, you gotta like, the, where's the best place to start with this? Basically just being you and sticking with it and taking notice of what it is that for the analytics needs to be adjusted for there to be a different outcome. Okay? So you're still going to be you making all of your own content. You're still going to be you. What's going to change is maybe the cover image for the video that you're uploading, or maybe the title, or maybe the written description, or maybe the hashtags or the keywords to begin with, right? Those are the first changes, because you don't want to change who you are and what you're doing so much as you do how people are interpreting what you're doing, or how their first impressions are registering with them, right? You've got billions of people rolling through YouTube every single day. You're probably well aligned with a good number of them, and you only need a very small stream of folks coming in out of all of those numbers to make your channel a success in some way, right? So really, I think it's more just about how you're positioning your content and really paying attention to whatever kind of insights you are able to glean from the platform, right? And other people that have tuned in, and making intelligent, meaningful, relevant changes. And not big changes, not big knee-jerk reactions, but very small adjustments, and then tracking the change over time. That is going to move a needle of some kind. And I guess the rest of it is really just sticking to it. Is just not giving up. Like, you can kick YouTube to the curb forever, and that's fine, as long as you keep doing whatever it is that you were wanting to do originally, right? Because maybe YouTube is just a distraction in all of that, right? To be perfectly frank, if you want to make money from music, you put your music up into libraries and you just keep doing that. If you don't want to deal with marketing or sales or anything else, just find a library or two to upload to and just keep uploading to it for the rest of your life. And that's it. And let them manage the traffic and the sales of all of it, and you just do your thing. But you got to be uploading to somewhere. That's the main thing. Catbot says, to copy paste the message before, I'm someone that really doesn't like AI. Anytime I see it or hear it, I get frustrated. But in the past, I've experimented with Udio and Suno out of curiosity, and I bounce my game design ideas off of LLMs, and I feel like there's a fundamental contradiction there. Yeah. Yeah, it might be a matter of expectations. You know, you only ever get out what you're putting in to one of these things. So adjusting what you're putting in obviously affects what you're getting out. I know that sounds very, like, super simplified, but yeah, just because you don't get a type of reaction from this thing that you like doesn't mean that everybody is having that same kind of experience. And an adjustment to that approach would probably have a pretty profound outcome. on those outcomes. Paul says, as I was starting in music production, quickly realized music is a wonderful hobby and lousy profession. 40 years later, and nothing has changed that. Yeah, I think that for most people, that is probably the realization that they come to. There are certain people that are really just kind of built for production music and stuff, right? So like if you really want like a career, like a whole career in audio or music or something, chances are it's probably not going to be as the front person of a big rock band. It's not going to be in the limelight. It's probably going to be in broadcast or something. You know what I mean? It's going to be adjacent to that one thing. That's totally fine. Like it is all part of the thing. Some people really are built for production stuff. Like I've always loved just being very productive with producing, and I can make hundreds of sounds in a day or in a sitting, and I can make a whole bunch of music in 1 week. And I've always been that way. And I think it's probably part of why I've never had any interest in dumping any of that into the general public listening space, because putting it into scenes in movies and television shows and stuff is so much more impactful, tangible. I'm not sure exactly what the right words are, but it's a list of words. It's not just one thing. There's just a lot of feels and alignment built with all of it, and I think that there's underlying intention, and those things get to come to life when they're put into projects. I think I appreciate that about that. I think other people do too, and that's why you see this side of the industry flourishing the way that it has and does. Catbot says, when it comes to YouTube specifically, as long as you keep going with it, at least every once in a while, if somebody finds your channel, they'll have a whole backlog to watch, and the more people that do that, the more those videos will be revived in the algorithm. Yeah, I believe that, yeah. Paul, this is a great band name. Paul saying, hence my first band, More Toys Than Talent, selected Keeping Our Day Jobs for our CD title. Oh, talk about being so self-aware, huh? Sonicscape says, so SoundCloud is a no-go then? Okay, so SoundCloud is great for some things. Let me explain where SoundCloud is great. If you are someone that is like let's say you sell sound packs or something like that, or you sell virtual instruments or something like that, and you want to have a bunch of like audio files there as a demo for those things, that's a perfect use of SoundCloud. Another really good use of SoundCloud would be like embedding a playlist on a blog or something like that, right? Putting together just an accumulation of things or a compilation of things that are somehow related or whatever. Like that very simple use. So this is like a playlist maker kind of thing, right? But if you want someone to be able to click through to one of those things and not just click a different play button or add it to a playlist, but actually purchase something or, gain the right to use it in a project, then actually set up a Disco account instead. There's other companies out there that will allow you to do very similar things. Source Audio is probably the next biggest competitor, but Disco has kind of usurped all the other competition for really good reasons. It's a very simple and high quality platform. Here's the main difference, okay? And this is the main difference between you releasing music out into the world and you putting your music into a portfolio. The same is true with sounds, and the biggest difference is metadata. Having the ability to search in a query and have your stuff come up as specific results for that query, right? Someone's looking for a specific mood, aesthetic, color, tone, timbre, instrument, setting, genre, whatever it is. All of those things are correlated metadata, right? So having all of your stuff in SoundCloud, there's some keywords that you can assign to it. That's true. But if you put it up into disco, now you have the ability to tag that music or those sounds with all sorts of different metadata, and it becomes relevant because the platform as a discovery tool now starts to play in your incredible favor, knowing that the large majority of people that frequent the platform, the platform of disco as an ecosystem, are music supervisors, are people that are looking to purchase music and use music in different sync opportunities. So now we're not talking about royalty free. We're talking about pretty good placement money here, right? Maybe a quick little ad, a few seconds gets you $500 or something, or maybe a spot in a movie gets you a few grand or something. That kind of stuff can be managed easily through disco. It's going to be way better than something like SoundCloud, because SoundCloud will feel like a dead end cul-de-sac compared to disco. Right, I think I may have said that backwards. SoundCloud is going to feel like a dead end cul-de-sac when compared to something like disco, which is just like, I don't even know how to describe it in comparison. Think of it as like a giant mall, right, where you can find anything you're looking for in the music world, right? And when you find it, you can actually use it, not just listen to it. So Paul says, in my humble opinion, selling content is dodgy these days. Performing and building an audience still makes sense. Crapshoot of buy my content is snake eyes. Yeah, see, I think we're on divergent paths there, I think, Paul, because people stopped going out into the real world many years ago now for a multitude of reasons. But even before that, they stopped buying music, unfortunately. And as we've just seen with the Live Nation Ticketmaster ruling, like, that's some really entitled stuff. Being able to go and see people and stuff is just so that leaves open the local market for most people in most situations. And the local market is going to pay something, but you're going to have to dedicate a good chunk of yourself to that, performing in that space to make it. And I just don't see all of the people doing that. I see that as a very, very select, small handful of places, small handful of opportunities, a very finite number of chances. Yet with an online content-based portfolio that exists forever, you do have at least a fighting chance of driving traffic to it, or putting it in places where traffic is consistent, which would result in transactions. But as a local artist here in the local area, you can't just conjure new venues, and the ability for people to fill those seats with tickets bought, and it just can't. It's just not realistic anymore. Oh, the AI conundrum, right, Catbot? Catbot saying, well, I mean, I don't like AI and that I don't like what people do with it. My reaction to seeing AI in the wild is always negative. I hate people using AI, but I use certain forms of AI as well. Yeah, right? Like, you don't mind your typos being corrected before your email being sent. Oh, not disliking the output that you prompt, but disliking people publicizing AI generated content. Yeah. Rabagasta, how you doing? Doing all right over here. Zendremic is here. How you doing, homie? Paul says, have you seen any of the fish shows from the Sphere? How can I make that video content? I have only seen limited samples of the fish stuff from the Sphere. Sphere is pretty gimmicky. Oh yeah. Now Paul has bliss because he doesn't have a worry of income right now. So all he has to do is make noise, which is the best. The best. One thing that I like about uploading to a portfolio is each time I do it, I know that the next time I'm going to check my numbers, those numbers are going to be just a little bit higher than they were the time before. And after doing this for so many years, that's a pretty nice thing. And I'll explain why. It's not a greed thing. It's okay, it's still safe. This is still okay to do thing. Every day I can see the numbers continuing to go up, which is a really good thing. Because if I couldn't see the numbers going up anymore, that means that I haven't been able to figure out how to keep doing this, which hasn't happened yet, which keeps giving me some faith. It is hard and it is tough to figure out how to make it all work. But if you have some folks that are willing to give you insight like this, right? And then you chase that insight, like you chase down those leads, you quickly gain a lot of ground, stuff that would have taken you years on your own. So it kind of eliminates a lot of waiting, a lot of this kind of time that is sunk into this investment, right, of building something. And then the longest part of this whole process is how long it takes to wait for things to clear the review queue and for you to get new stuff up into the review queue for release. That kind of becomes your routine, right? How much more stuff can you get out there? Sadface says, I want to be able to be independent and make my own music, but I think my lack of consistency is why I've kind of been leaning into improving my mixing skills. Because in the moments I'm struggling for creativity, I can at least still work on music. Yeah. But I do worry that it could go down a path that leaves little time to make my own stuff when I want to. And yes, it would. Since I started, I've always wanted to make my own music, but it feels so demanding. If you aren't consistent enough, people tend to get bored. And then it goes from making music with passion to begging people to stay and listen. So that is solved, Sadface, by moving your stuff out of just releasing it to SoundCloud and Spotify and Apple Music and all that, and releasing it instead into a portfolio as well. You can still release it how you have been, and you can still have it associated with BMI or ASCAP or whatever, and you can put it up into Creative Commons, into Content ID, and have it tracked in various ways, and you can still have that in a portfolio. That's the difference. That's the difference. You're not asking people to stay and listen anymore. It's not about that anymore. It's just simply not about that. It's, did your stuff resonate with the person making this other piece of content? And that matters. And the answer will be yes. The answer will be yes. Your music will resonate more with other creators than it will the general population, probably. Because the people that are the creators browsing your music are out there actively seeking that very thing. It is in their best interest to be actively seeking it right now, because it is their business model. It is their thing. Yeah. Sonicscape says, I am going to give disco a go. Yeah, there's lots to absorb, so look it up on YouTube too, like how it works and what's going on with it. It's very simple on the surface. It's going to look a bit like SoundCloud or whatever, but just know that you need to spend the time filling in all of those metadata fields, and you really need to be aware of the industry, the playing field, what those words mean, what people mean when they type them into the search bar, and what they're expecting when they hit enter and when they start listening to the results. Because if yours run contrary to their expectations, it's just going to get skipped, most likely. So you really do want to focus on alignment and really solid representation with keywords and whatnot. Metadata is everything. Yeah, Paul. Bring back house concerts, right? We have house concerts all the time here. My kid's always performing. It's wonderful. Syndromic says, I treat AI as a library that makes things up often. But my music and art is never touched by AI. And I wouldn't know where to start anyways. So it's for the best. Yeah. Oh, Paul says, I am paid not to work. But they don't pay me to not produce. Catbot following up with, I think my main issue is people using AI as part of the final product, or just the final product itself. It can be part of the process, but it shouldn't be evident in the final result. It's a tool, and a lot of people use only that tool. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Paul says, a lack of consistency means you're still finding your voice. Learning to mix, record, how I started, and always a useful skill. Although I don't recall splicing tape this century. Yeah, people aren't really doing that anymore. Well, the one concern that that Sadface was bringing up was, if I start to focus more on mixing and engineering for other people, won't that get in the way of my own creative time? And the answer is yes, of course, in those hours. If your music is a priority dream-wise, like if you want your music to actually become something eventually, then never give up on it and always include it in your regular rotation, right? So even if you have to go to school and work a 9 to 5 and you have family stuff keeping you down and you're dating someone, there's still got to be some kind of presence of music, right? There has to be. Otherwise, you can't hit that upload button. And if you don't hit the upload button, then you're non-existent in that way, right? Right? So, think of it as an escape hatch. And each time you hit upload, you get one tiny little bit closer to that escape hatch button actually ejecting you out of your cubicle and you quitting your 9 to 5. It could be years from now, but as long as you continue to be really methodical and consistent about uploading, then all of those things will continue to exist. That is the thing about the portfolio. That's the thing that makes me not fear AI the way that other people fear AI. Because I know that I've been hitting upload for a while and I have hundreds or thousands of things up online right now. And you know what that does to the AI landscape? It makes a lot of what is happening with AI and those specific sounds or those specific music files pretty dang irrelevant. Irrelevant. It really does. It's not like my stuff is disappearing or that someone would rather download something that was AI generated than something that I created. Those things just aren't happening. So I'm not caught up in the fear the same way that a lot of other folks are, because I'm going to make the stuff regardless of whether or not AI is attempting to make it or not. And as far as I know, for the time being still at least, I'm still making it better than what AI can do. So I'm going to keep chasing that nut. But even when that shifts, even when we get to the point where someone can type something in to AI and get that thing out, that still is going to, that's going to cost them. That's going to cost them. And you better believe we're going to tax the heck out of tokens. I can't be the only person thinking about this. Taxing tokens and qubits to create a universal income. You know that's the path forward. So the more people use this stuff, the more they'll be charged and the less satisfying it will oftentimes be for them. But if they have stock assets right there that they could download for a human for pennies on the dollar in comparison, then why wouldn't they do that? Right? Exactly. Mental mind shifts, I think. I think a lot of people do need some mental mind shifts. Yeah, that's true. Right now, there is a lot of that. Syndromic saying, I don't like this artist, so they're like AI. Yeah, that's true. Syndromic says, OMLab uploading thousands of things, feeding the AI overlords. Maybe. I mean, if they're constantly swallowing the world, then isn't everybody always? Catbot saying the best thing you can do against AI is keep making things. People who enjoy your art aren't going to move to AI because only the people who don't see art as transcendent are going for AI over human-made art. So you need to push through the noise. I would agree with that. Paul says, when AI recommends go to OMLab, we win. Hey! Well, it really depends on what they're asking the AI. Like if they said, hey, what sound designer makes the best cinematic hits and also sells on this subscription platform that I already subscribe to. And then they say OMLab, and then you're like, yes, that's a win. That's a win. But here's the other thing, is that people are out there thinking, oh no, these marketplaces, they're being flooded with AI. It's not really true. That's not really true. It's just really not. When you look at what's actually happening in those marketplaces, you know what oftentimes is true? That the marketplace has implemented a similar button, an AI conjuring magic generation button that says either find something similar to this or create this thing. Now, most of the marketplaces do not have the create this thing because a lot of the times the outcomes are not very satisfying. And all it takes is one unsatisfying outcome to turn someone off to that feature forever or for a very good long while. So of course they don't want to do it. That's bad business for them, for their future model, because eventually they will have good audio coming out of generation. But for now, they've got the similar find like button, right? So in a way, that's almost more harmful than the AI generate button will be. And let me explain myself before you have a knee-jerk reaction that's like all super negative here. If someone finds one of my sounds and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so good. It's so almost perfect for what I need. I need it to be just slightly different. So now they're going to click that AI button and they're going to start typing in their prompt, which is going to take my sound, ingest it, and transform it in whatever ways based upon the language model understanding of what they've typed into their little field there. Now, whatever AI is spitting out of that has generated from my thing, right? So then I would get the piece of that for the creator part, right? Because what have the courts said about it? The courts have said, right, like you can't own that stuff. You can sell the stuff, sure, but you can't like own a copyright of it or whatever, right? So if one of these platforms has a button like that, then they've got to pay the artist that it came from. So there are legs up. There's a reason to keep putting stuff out there, you guys. There really is. And there always will be. There always will be. You just got to figure out where to do it all. Yeah, Syndromic saying, sound designers rule the AI music world. We always create new sounds. AI can't keep up. And yeah, that's kind of the truth, actually. It's always going to be referencing what we're doing, which is kind of where we want to be in that relationship, I think. Catbot saying, AI music on platforms are being promoted, not flooded. They're being pushed to the forefront by force. You just need to look one layer deeper and a lot of the AI disappears. Paul, take care. Have a good one, homie. Thanks for hanging, dude. Zen saying, hey, if you're an artist, musician, and you enjoy what you do, your future is safe if you keep creating. AI artists hate what you do and would never understand the fine details and would never sound like you. There you go. Oh, yeah, this is true. Endless says, just keep creating endlessly. Yeah, it's true. That is actually the truth of all of it, is to just keep creating. And I would say that that is the big takeaway in all of this, is that how you fail in the AI age is by giving up. And it's going to be all the more foolish a choice when we all see soon that people have largely misunderstood what AI is and what they can expect from it. And that humans are still relevant in a great many ways in our field and will be for some time. That said, like, dude, Suno and Udio, like, this is ridiculous. This is just ridiculous. Oh, it's ridiculous. You know, this just chatting thing is totally different than sitting around and producing. I feel like I need to get up and move around and stuff, so I'm going to bring up some noise here. I'm going to go over here and kick the old Twitch box and see who's doing their thing. I think we should do another one of these next week. We're going to do a Feedback Friday stream in 2 days. So we'll do that. But I was thinking we should probably do another one of these next week. Just pick a topic and go, right? I think we'll plan on that. In the meantime, I'm going to take us over to Shu's house. We're going to go listen to some legends, spinning some other legends, and chill out for a bit. If you're not familiar with who Shoes is, this is a chance for you to get a little piece of history. It's a pretty great person right here. I appreciate you guys, and thanks for hanging with me while we were just chatting today and not actually producing and being productive. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you on Friday. Bring whatever you made this week, and we're going to listen to it together and help you make it even better. I'll see you on the flip, guys. Peace out.